As we were saying last time, modernity is a very broad phenomenon, one that touches on many different aspects of human life. It also touches many different cultures. The ease of communication in modern society, the ability to transport not only information, but also people and goods around the world, means that changes in one place have a big effect on other places. A bad harvest in Argentina can push up fruit prices here in the United States, and a change in the demand for certain kinds of goods in the United States can mean that whole communities in China become rich or go bankrupt. The interconnection of cultures means that it's very hard to draw a line between one culture and another. There are things about the modern world that just tie them up all together very tightly. Take McDonald's, for example. It would be hard to come up with anything that seems to be a better example of American culture than McDonald's. It started in America. Its foods are all very classic American dishes. And it's imbued with classic American features like mass production, excessive marketing, and really third-rate quality. When you go around the world, people really think of McDonald's as something quintessentially American. But it's not just American. You can go to Denmark, or Germany, or France, or Russia, or China, or almost any other country in the world, and somewhere you're going to find a McDonald's. And those McDonald's are quite like the American ones. At the same time, there's some differences. As everyone who's seen Pulp Fiction knows, in France they call a quarter pounder with cheese a Royale with cheese. But they also serve somewhat different foods in French McDonald's. They use different decors, and they have a generally different feel. A McDonald's in Beijing is not nearly as American as a McDonald's in Plattsburgh. It's sort of American and Chinese at the same time, in the same way that a Chinese restaurant in Plattsburgh is a mix of Chinese and American culture. McDonald's, in other words, isn't something that's purely American. It's a phenomenon that transcends national boundaries, something that belongs both to one place and to all of the different places in which it's found. You can think of other things like this. Israeli discount electronics stores, which you can find in many places internationally, or Coca-Cola, or Rolex watches, or the Wheel of Fortune television program, which is on screen in a shockingly large number of cultures around the world, each tailored to its own locality. Where do these things exist? What culture do they belong to? In some ways, each of them belongs to a local culture, but at the same time, they belong to something transnational, a culture of modernity that extends across a large number of individual local societies. Now, in this sense, we can think of modernity as a transnational cultural phenomenon, something that has to be understood at a level outside of its manifestation in any particular place. Now, this is something relatively new in the world, a kind of global reach that becomes possible in a profoundly new way when communications technologies and linked economic systems join people together over distances that were previously unimaginable. Now, the book that we're reading is intended to be an ethnography of modernity, right? An attempt to make sense of the modern cultural experience as it exists in many different places at the same time. Now, the way it does that is by focusing on one feature of modernity, its influence on our understanding of ourselves, and the extent to which it places a special value on the notion of authenticity. And because modern culture doesn't exist in just one place, the examples that the book gives come from a lot of different countries and time periods. That's actually the most fun thing about the book, one of the main reasons I decided to assign it. It shows processes involving authenticity and modernity going on in widely separated cultures in a lot of different areas of cultural activity. The funny thing is that for all of the variation, most of the examples are going to sound familiar to you in one way or another. However strange the setting, you're going to be able to imagine something similar happening in your own culture. Lindholm argues that that's because no matter how widely apart we're spread, almost all of us in today's world are facing a common set of cultural and psychological dilemmas, and that these arise from the characteristic way that modernity shapes society and shapes the self.